holy shit, like I've completely forgotten
I blocked
all
it
of
out.
Throttle Jockey. Like, except for the time he lit Alan's hair on fire with the magic paper.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was the Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Plow United is an American punk rock band who formed in Wilmington, Delaware in 1992. They played fast punk rock with pop, thrashcore, and hardcore influences. Their lyrics are sometimes labeled as emo post-fact. This is what it says on Wikipedia. I don't know what that means. But anyway. Band members are Brian Mcgee on vocals and guitar, Sean Rule on drums, and Joel Tannenbaum on bass. In '96, the band recorded and released their second record, Goodnight Sellout, and received attention from major labels. They declined to pursue a career in rock and roll, however, and in '97, they broke up at the height of their popularity. In '98, Creep Records, which is an interview I did a couple weeks ago, which is episode 37 with Eric Victor, if you want to check it out. In '98, Creep Records released a posthumous. Again, I must be just a fucking idiot. I don't know what that word is. Great. Third LP, Narcolepsy, a darker take on the band's loose, aggressive pop punk sound. Also in '98, Plow reformed to play 3 shows in New York and Pennsylvania to promote the release of Narcolepsy. They got back together in 2011 to play some shows, including Gainesville, Florida's Fest, and recorded a new full-length, newer, in 2012 called Marching Band. If you've been following this podcast, you can go back and kind of see a little bunch of breadcrumbs that are leading up to this interview. If you go back to Alan Rappaport from Flipside Records interview, he'd always recommend albums that we should get, and we would buy them and listen to them, and Plow was one of these bands that all my friends got into because of Alan. And he had mentioned it in his interview, and Alan also mentioned Creep Records, which led to me interviewing Eric. And in Eric's interview, he talks about Plow because Plow is pretty much like the staple band on Creep. And after talking to Eric, he was like, dude, you should interview Brian. Here's his cell phone. Just text him. So I text Brian out of nowhere and said, hey, dude, you don't know me, but I have this podcast. I got your number from Eric. Would you be down? And at that time, also, I heard that he lives in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I live in Raleigh. Well, he lives in Carborough, which is next to Chapel Hill. Something like that. Anyway, he lives close by. I still haven't met him. I've never met him face to face, except for some shows back in the day, like 20 years ago, when my band played with his other band, Throttle Jockey, which he played in for a hot minute after Plow. And so I reached out to him and said, hey man, would you want to be interviewed? He was like, fuck yeah, let's do this. So we got on the phone at like 8:30 at night on a weekday, and we talked, and this is what we talked about. Their quote-unquote show with Busta Rhymes, playing in the high school band, having an influence on Plow, who was the main songwriter in the band, Throttle Jockey's Hair on Fire story, the Bouncing Souls, their time on Creep Records, how they have a ton of merch left over still, so you guys want to stick around and see how you can get that, making merch to help save day laborers, his chance to sing in a little band called Kid Dynamite, square dancing, and a ton more. Now, before we begin, this week's episode is sponsored by my animation company, Drive 80. If you're a marketing company in need of someone to turn your layered graphics into video, then check out my website, drive80.com, to check out some of my work. Basically, this means that if you're a graphic designer, if you're a creative director, if you're a marketing company, and you have a shit ton of Facebook ads that are just flat, I can take those layered files and turn them into video. And I can do a lot of this stuff within an hour or so. And your clients will love it because then you can use it to retarget people after they watch 10 seconds or more of a video. So something to think about. If you'd like to just support the podcast in general, you don't need any animations for anything you do, then you can go to thiswasthescene.com and donate as little as $1 a month through my Patreon page, which you can get to on the website by clicking the button at the top of the page that says click here for bonus material. If you don't want to do that and pay $1 a month for a year, $12 equals what, like 3 Starbucks coffees? You're going to spend that money this week. Why not spread it over a year and help out something you're probably listening to a couple times a month? Anyway, or you can do a one-time donation by hitting the donate button on the site, and that's also very helpful. And that's all I got to say. So feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Before we start, thanks, dude. I
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
on a fucking Monday night talking at
Uh,
8:30 at night.
it's actually like the exciting part of my night, like outside of the normal kid, family, bed, dishes,
Routine.
laundry routine. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do something else tonight.
How old are your kids?
4.5 and 2.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I just, do you ever hear the band Braid?
Breed?
Braid?
Braid?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know that name, but I don't know the music.
I just interviewed Chris from there today, and he's got like 3 kids, all under the age of 5, and I'm like,
Oh God.
I know, I'm like, I'm so far behind on any of this shit.
Yeah, go spend a week with him. You're like, no, I'm good. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm not behind at all. I'm actually ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's just funny because all my friends, all my buddies who actually, all my friends who I grew up with, who knew of you guys, and we all
Yeah.
started knew back in the day. Every single one of them has kids, and I'm living down here in Raleigh, single, no family or anything, doing a podcast about punk rock, and I'm like, I think I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm having kids made me definitely respect. Not that I never respected anyone who didn't want to have kids, but like it just made me like kind of respect like, oh, the people who are like the hard no, like, no, I'm not having kids. Like I respect that, and I see I see why. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I can
think I always-
imagine I can imagine that it's completely awesome, and I love all my friends' kids, but and I'm like just I'm divorced and all this stuff, so it's kind of it just put me in the position where I'm not there, but it's always interesting talking to people who have kids, and they're like, yeah, there's the night routines and the baths and all this other crazy shit that you guys all have to do.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. True test of patience.
What brought you down? What brought you down to North Carolina anyway?
Geez. It was this time like 20 years ago, actually. I went to this place called the John Campbell Folk School.
Okay.
And it's on the other end of the state. It's in the mountains in Brasstown, which is 7 miles east of Murphy, which is about as far west in the state as you can get.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was just ready for something to do. Plow had broken up, and I think I was just ready for something new. And my girlfriend at the time told me about this school, or it was like, you can learn how to build furniture. They build banjos, all kinds of traditional crafts. And at the time, I was like head on into getting into like old folk music, so it was like a kind of this perfect fit at the right time. And
Oh, wow.
then I moved down and.
You've been down here for 20 years?
Roughly. I mean, I moved down, like I went down in 98 and then I came home, and then I moved in 99 and stayed and like started building furniture and all kinds of stuff like that. I went through like 3 different schools. I met my wife in 2002 at the Penland School of Craft, this is all in the western end of the state.
Okay.
Sort of
Past Asheville.
as Asheville sort of being the hub city around all this. And then spent a bunch of years in Asheville, and then we moved to. She went to Rutgers in 2011. So in 2011 we left Asheville for Jersey.
Wow. That's totally
and then-
backwards.
Yeah, I know, totally. It was like, okay, we're going to New Brunswick.
Too bad the melody.
Am I going to
was
say
closed.
Lifetime?
Yeah, exactly.
And oddly enough, it was like the first time I'd ever gone to the Court Tavern. Like I never.
Oh, wow.
I think Plow played at Rutgers University. At some point in the 90s, we opened up for. It was one of those weird, like college day, sort of like college fair sort of events where there's like the tables around the gymnasium of like people giving out credit cards and stuff like that. And there was a stage, and Busta Rhymes was the headliner. Let's Go Bowling played.
Jesus.
That jam band Mo, maybe
Never heard of them.
played, and we played, and maybe there was like one other, but we played like first way early before any of the other bands got there. But it's cool because there's a flyer now that says Busta Rhymes, Let's Go Bowling, Plow United. So we could technically say we opened up for Busta Rhymes.
That's
in
amazing.
New Brunswick.
I think we played a
Um,
show in State College, I think in
oh yeah.
Pennsylvania, and you guys, and I remember this vividly. It was the sound was shit, and it was this stage, and it was kind of like an auditorium, or I'm
Hmm.
sorry, in like a cafeteria, kind of. It was weird. But you think
Yeah.
you guys had played there earlier that day or earlier that week or something? 'Cause remember we showed up there and like, oh, fucking Plow just played this thing, but
Huh.
we couldn't hear dick on stage. And this is like,
Yeah.
I think this was like 99 into I think this might have been 2000 because we had, Brian, you ever hear of Gaslight Anthem?
Yeah.
Okay, so Brian was in our band for a hot minute before he like went on to do all that stuff, and I think he
Yeah.
was in the band at that time we played there. This was like right before I think we were pretty much gonna like close out, but
Yeah.
the show was it was such shit, but it was so bad. I just like vividly remember that you guys had just played there or something
Huh.
like that, yeah, or had always I don't know what the connection was there, but it was just for some
Yeah.
reason it stuck in my mind.
I remember we played. I think the one thing about State, I feel like we played State College with Dutchland Diesel.
I don't remember.
I don't know. Like, there's some of that stuff with State College and going up to like St. Mary's, and a lot of those kind of shows all start kind of blending together a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I mean, technically we broke up in '97 and then did like 3 more shows in '98 when Narcolepsy came out. But I don't remember like the last like the 97 we broke up in August, so it was like it was like 8 months of the year we were still a band. I can't remember exactly where we definitely didn't tour. Um, but yeah, I don't remember.
I know it gets very foggy, especially after all
Yeah,
the craft IPAs I've been drinking since I've been down here. Shit's getting weird.
I know. It's like what from the fucking North Carolina, like beer state USA. It's kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah. What do you guys do? Well, there's this place to drink and this place to eat. I'm like, is there anything else you guys do? Because I'm gaining like 20 pounds, and it just because
yeah,
it's like 400 calories per beer that I'm drinking. It's insane.
yeah. Well, I had all these friends that I made in our 4 years in New Jersey. Periodically ask me like, where should we go in Asheville? And I'm like, what are you going to Asheville for? Like, well, we're going to drink. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, oh, right. There's easily, I think there's 20 breweries in the city limits, or at least that.
Oh yeah.
So it's, people make the trip. I mean, maybe at a different point, maybe in a child-free part of my life, I would have done that. But the thought of driving like 15 hours just to go drink craft beer just sounds a little silly to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, considering also you're like so close to Durham and Raleigh, you could just
Yeah,
take
that's true.
30, 40 minutes and go do that if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, but so this whole just kind of jump into it too. So this whole
Yeah.
podcast is about the late '90s, and
Mm-hmm.
I started it off focusing on just New Jersey and that whole scene, and
Cool.
this is the newest season where I capped that one between like Portrait Studios was a recording studio in Jersey that my band we'd recorded our first demo. And I ended up talking to Chris first, and then I ended it with my old singer. And it was like this kind of like this perfect piece where it was just confined to then. And I was like, I really want to talk to the bands that influenced us, that we used to put on blast all the time in our cars and just
Oh
sing
yeah.
along to. But you
That's great.
guys, yeah, like you guys, we used to blast it all the time because we were really good friends with Alan from Flipside and Pop Kid Records.
Oh yeah. After the night you asked me about to do this,
Yeah.
I went to the podcast and listened to that, and it was really cool to
Oh, did you?
hear Alan talk through, his story. It was cool. Yeah,
That's
it
awesome.
was awesome.
Yeah,
I totally enjoyed it.
I loved when he mentioned that. I think it was if it was a him or because I also interviewed Eric
Uh-huh.
from Creep, and he was the one who gave me your number. It was like, "Yo, dude, call him up." I was like, or text him. I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah!" But it was one of the two of them that talked about how you would drive up to Flipside and drop off records. Was that you or was that Eric doing that?
That would have been Eric, because
Okay.
he would have had more of a reason. I mean, he would have had a pile of records, from Creep to drop
Yeah.
off.
Okay. But you,
But
but
Plow
like,
would have. I mean, it wouldn't have been out of the question for us to, do something stupid like that. I mean, not to say that it's stupid, but like, we would drive 5 hours to play a show and then play the show and then turn around and just drive home.
oh yeah,
You know,
yeah, we all did that shit. We were like, why are we
right,
doing 10 hours to do this shit in the middle of fucking nowhere in front of three
right.
kids?
Someone needs
Um,
records. Go.
So the whole point is really just to kind of get the origins of the bands or record labels or studios and stuff. So I have this all structured and it can go in any direction. It's super casual. But
Yeah.
to start off, as I do is all interviews, anyone listening, like, what actually got you into music when you were young?
I think what got me into music, outside of just the music that was played around the house, um, which growing up in Philadelphia, it was like, um, there's something about that city and the Beatles that is like, it's almost obnoxious.
Really?
Well, I mean, not in a bad way.
No,
I
just
just
like I
think
didn't
about
realize it was such a Beatles city,
I
or
don't know,
was.
something about. I mean, my dad's family. My dad comes from. He's like one of eight kids, and it was like seven boys and a girl. It was like traditional old style Catholic family where they
Okay.
just kept pumping out kids,
Yep.
and I just felt like it was like, and we all sort of, a lot of us all lived in the same area, and they all grew up on the Beatles, and so it was like the Beatles were like that was the bar, that was what everybody measured everything against, and I guess people still do to a certain extent. But it felt like some of the radio stations like WMMR was like they had like breakfast with the Beatles, and then like every like little snippet between like we're gonna go to traffic, and it was like you hear like beep 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 beep, yeah, it's like wherever anybody could put a Beatles reference, it like fucking existed.
It's amazing.
So
I've
like
never heard this. I've never heard that that was such a thing in Philly 'cause I grew up in Jersey. That's so funny.
yeah, so I mean it's like the Beatles, and I think my mom was more into. I remember her bringing home like Michael Jackson and Anita Baker.
Yeah.
And my dad. I remember definitely going through my dad's Police records. But then I think the thing that really made me interested in playing was that my cousin John. Um, sorry,
That's fine.
he played keyboards, and he started playing keyboards as a kid, and he lived around the corner from me. And so I would never like really like hang out for his lessons, but I knew it was something he did, and they had like an organ in the house, and so it was sort of like a presence. And our dads were friends with this like band, and they play like block parties and stuff, and they play like, or like wedding, it's like their friends party band who played covers and stuff. And they had a party one summer, and I met this guy Joe who played keyboards in the band, and they were, I had expressed wanting to take. First, I wanted to play drums, and then I just was like too shy to go talk to the drummer, and then I wanted to play guitar, and this keyboard player was like, "I can teach you how to play guitar." So that was like, it was like there was like a family connection. But I think the thing, like seeing my cousin John, like be able to like play songs we heard on the radio as he was like learning to play.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. But then I think the thing that really set me off was my Uncle Timmy. He worked at a place in Philly called the Chestnut Cabaret, and it's not there anymore. But back in the day, I think it may have been like an 800 cap venue.
Okay.
And it was like the Hooters played there, and like a lot of like bands like who were, I guess, were blowing up in Philly would play there before they went on to bigger things, whatever. But there was a local band in the 80s called Tommy Conwell and the Young Rumblers. And my cousin John and I were like out on the street doing something one day as kids, and my Uncle Timmy came by in the car. He said, "I just talked to your parents, and I want you to come down to the bar and meet this band. So let's go." And we're like, okay. So we go down to the bar, and he was like, he's like, "If you guys can help me sweep, the band's having a record release show or something." There was some event happening that night. They were playing, and we're like, "Okay, cool." And then the crew, like this, the guitar techs and the tour manager and everything, like they showed us the whole stage and walked us around, and there was smoke machines and there were lights, and they were checking everything. And then the band came in. It was like this 5-piece band. I was like a 11-year-old kid. And so they all just felt like giants standing around me in like leather jackets and, tight denim jeans and cowboy boots and combat boots and stuff, and it was like, holy shit. I think I remember realizing like these are like rock and roll people. Like this is like what people look like that we hear on the radio,
all the time.
Like, yeah. And I didn't know, I hadn't heard this band yet. And I was just like, whoa. And they were like really nice to us. And they like knew my uncle from playing the bar. And then they like went up and sound checked, and it was like loud as hell. And they were just super nice. And they like autographed posters and records for us. And I went home and I was like, this is the coolest thing that's happened to me so far.
How old were you when this happened?
I was like 11 or 12,
okay.
I think. And, and the only music I had listened to at that point was like, I had like a Jackson 5 tape, and I listened to the radio, whatever was on the radio. And, yeah, and that was it. But I hadn't latched on to anything obsessively yet until that band. And then, and then I just listened to the tape over and over. And then when I put it on now, I can still I can remember being a kid, like, dancing in front of the mirror, with the radio blasting, and like every like note to every part of the record, I can still like it's like right there in the front of my mind. But I think after seeing that and like the whole thing too, like not just like walking in on a show and being like, wow, that was really cool, like getting to meet like the crew and like seeing everything before the band even got on, and like what was going on in the room. And
interesting.
Yeah. And it made a huge impact on me. And then I went to play guitar after that. I was like, I have to do that now.
Did you find it kind of funny? Because I remember growing up and MTV was the big thing, and my mom used to always blast Michael Jackson and the Police, and like the Ghostbusters record soundtrack and all that stuff, and Huey Lewis. But it felt like they were so far away from where you were for some reason. And then when I talk to a lot of people through these interviews, there's always that like the connection I've noticed between all the people I've talked to is that the bands that really got them into punk music or the music that we played there was just this super close connection to it. Like we felt it was tangible, or it was like attainable to be these people or know them.
Yeah. Especially like when something touches you like firsthand like that, I mean, I'm sure there's people who like get so wowed by something over the radio that they want to try it, and maybe that was like our parents who like watched the Beatles come over the TV, and just it was like something completely new, and they're just like, what, but yeah, it's like to really like have something like hit you in the face like that, like in real time. You're like, holy shit,
Yeah, you're like,
it's way different.
I could be this person, or I can do that, or like I want to be as cool as that person who, I'm sure people listening to this are like, who the fuck is that band? But they could care less. But for you, that was a game changer. Totally.
And it's like, I followed them for so long, and it just, and I just kind of remember like having like the images like in my mind of like seeing them, and and they were like a rockin' bar band, and it's just like, and to me that was just like, that's just what you did, or that it wasn't corny. And it got like, as I got a little older, it got corny, but then I got a little away from that. I kind of started like learning more of the pieces of like who they were, and I was like, oh, these dudes, like they liked ripping guitar solos, and they liked writing like loud pop songs, and a bunch of them like started off playing like in punk bands. And including, I mean, like nothing that ever did anything, but like, that guy Tommy Conwell, he went to University of Delaware, and he is like an amazing jazz guitar player. And then he played in like some like goofy punk band, and then he played in like a rhythm and blues band, and he just liked everything and was just really good at it. And but then he just, I guess the times just caught up with him. They had a moment. They had like 2 records on Columbia, and then they got dropped for whatever reason. And but he was a total ham, like running through the crowd with a wireless unit on his guitar. And but when I was like 13 years old, I was like, this dude is the best. Like this doesn't get any better than this,
Did you like prior to this though? Did you prior to this have any kind of dreams about playing music in front of people, or was this the turning point? It's such a strong way to say that turning point, but this is like the moment where you saw that and you're like, man, I want to fucking do that.
Yeah, that was kind of watching them do that was like, holy fuck, like this is like, because I hadn't really like, I mean, I guess I had maybe seen like some people like kind of play music, or it wasn't really, it nothing had an impact on me until like seeing that, and then like meeting the band too, and like, and at that point I had never like met a rock band before, so I didn't know like rock musicians could be assholes either.
Yeah.
So these guys were like really nice, like, and they were really great, and then like their whole crew it was like such a positive, like it couldn't have been any more positive experience. A year later, like I think their big Columbia record came out, and my uncle brought us back again to like paint the green room or whatever. And I just remember being kind of like nervous because like the singer was the first one there, and I was like, oh fuck, I'm in the back and I'm painting. And he walked back with his guitar, and he's just like noodling. He's like, didn't I meet you before? And I was like, yeah. And I was just like, I just thought like, he fucking remembered me. That's so cool. This is like total like fanboy, like 13-year-old like fanboy dork, just like wowed by I was like, this dude's got me for life.
Did you ever watch Growing Pains when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Did you remember the episode where like Brad Pitt was a rock star and Ben went to see him, but then he went in the back room? Do you remember this episode?
No.
I vividly remember this. Like Ben goes to see this. I'm totally going off, but it kind of reminds me of this. Like he goes to see them and he gets backstage and Brad Pitt, he walks in and Brad Pitt's like making out with this groupie and he yells at him. He's like, "Get the hell out of here!" And Ben like was like, "That ruined it for me." And I just remember like when you're talking this, I'm like, oh, I hope he didn't have like a Ben Seaver story.
No. This is like 3 in the afternoon.
Okay.
Definitely not a late night moment.
So when you had this experience, and then when you went to like going into high school, like what kind of transitioned you into liking punk? I mean, I'm just gonna automatically assume that like punk music was the music that you listened to just because of the sound you guys played.
It kind of, I mean, it wasn't until like the second half of high school. Like I definitely went into freshman year of high school, like definitely on listening to like I was like way into like guitar music, like late 80s guitar music. Like I was listening to like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, like, and then like other pop music or whatever. But like I didn't really know anything about punk rock at that point. I knew I liked this Tommy Conwell band, but I was also like trying to like figure out how to do like fancy guitar stuff. So like one of the first things Joel ever said to me was, it was in the hallway freshman year, and I had like everyone like hangs crap up in their lockers, and I had like pictures of guitar players and stuff, and I had a picture of Joe Satriani from probably the CD like long box from the late 80s hanging in my thing, and he was just like, oh, I just heard that record, and we got talking about it. But it wasn't until like I will just totally admit that like I probably got my gateway punk rock band was probably Nirvana. Like I probably hadn't really heard anything like that or was exposed to anything until like I was like, oh, what, huh? And then and then other things were starting to make like, other things started to make sense. It
was so different though. Like when that sound came out and the Smells Like Teen Spirit video came out, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, and it was nobody around me like growing up to that point, like no one around me like had ever played punk rock to me before. Like I'm sure I had heard the Ramones, maybe, in
the background somewhere.
Yeah, like I don't like, or no one was just like, sit down and listen to this. This is awesome,
Interesting.
But I was definitely like into like I loved Van Halen, like, and I really liked 5150. Like I totally loved the Sammy Hagar record, and I had like, and when I, leaving grade school and going into high school, some of my grade school friends, they like went straight metal, and I was like I remember kind of being like a little freaked out by it, being like, I don't really understand what's going on. Like, but like there is like, I was like, who the fuck is Megadeth and like Metallica? I was like, I don't get it. And and they just went full metal, and I loved hanging out with them and listening to what they were listening to. But I just never like went down like.
You never attach yourself to it as like much as they did.
Yeah, I never really did, and so I think maybe that would have led me into like some like hardcore punk stuff through like old Metallica records. But yeah, no, I didn't really hit it until high school, and when like Nirvana broke, and then they kind of like it it kind of shined a light on a whole lot of things.
Oh, and, yeah, absolutely.
And I think Joel probably was the first one to be like, you need to like listen to the Ramones and listen to this band. I mean, I definitely knew who the Clash was. Like, I mean, that was hard to not hear.
Yeah, I mean, they had that video on MTV with them. They're out, they rock the Casbah. They're out in the oil field playing.
Yeah,
like, that video was always on rotation.
Totally, but I didn't realize that. I didn't know that was punk rock.
Yeah, because it didn't sound like it.
No, it didn't. It was just like, oh, this is like 80s pop music.
Yeah.
Cool. Look at these guys.
Well, anyone listening too, he's talking about Joel, the bass player, right? The bassist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he definitely turned me on to a ton of stuff, and I think he turned Sean, the drummer, he turned us both on to like. He was the first one to like introduce us to like the Lookout Records catalog.
Yeah.
And I remember when he showed up with Screeching Weasel, My Brain Hurts, and we're like, oh, so this is where people took the Ramones stuff. Okay, all right,
Yeah. Did the three of you guys meet in high school?
Yeah, and we were all in like
you were Wilmington,
bands.
Right?
Yeah, we were in Wilmington, Delaware. Sean is from Wilmington.
Oh wow. Okay.
And Joel is from Brookhaven, which is a suburb of Philly, and then I moved from Philly to Aston, which is right near Brookhaven.
Okay.
That's my parents still live there. But we were all in like high school band together. Like we were all in like the band class, and those guys were all in marching band together, and we were in like the spring musical pit orchestra together. And
no shit.
So we did like a lot of it's funny that we kind of all played together before actually being Plow. We through like high school band stuff and like reading music and being like band nerds, and if you take that info and listen to some of the older records, there are definitely like some like band nerd parts that kind of like come through.
What song would you think would be?
Oh,
if you could.
Probably the middle of Complete Conformity was a total like I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's actually something that we ripped off from something,
okay,
or if it's like something that Sean and Joel wrote, or Joel wrote that song. So I can't remember if they came out with this part together, but it's like the part that goes like it's like this weird guitar thing and weird time signature thing, and
okay,
I don't know. It definitely, I think high school band definitely informed some of Plow United's instincts in some weird ways.
So you guys met in the band, and then was there a scene in Wilmington, like a punk scene?
Yeah, I don't know who all those bands were, but I remember going through like the local 7-inch section at the record store in Wilmington. It was called Rainbow Records, and there was a band called Jake and the Stiffs, and I think the woman who was working like the local band vinyl kind of area of the record store, I think her name was Sheena, and she was like, oh, like you might like that band, like because we brought her like a Plow record or a tape or whatever, and she would listen, and sort of the same thing way Alan did. Alan would like inform, like, oh, you like this, check this out.
Yeah.
And I think she sort of pointed me I remember like picking up the Jake and the Stiffs record and being like, holy shit, this is this is awesome. But I mean, there was a whole scene way before Plow ever showed up, that I didn't really know much about. But then, but this stuff definitely developed over time. We met the Crash, who were on Creep.
Okay.
They kind of came up behind. They were like a couple years younger than us, and we definitely played a high school dance with the Crash, when they would let us do that. And I can't remember some of the other bands off the top of my head. I feel like a dick for not remembering, but there was definitely like a healthy scene there in like the mid '90s, revolving around VFW halls. And there's a place in downtown Wilmington called the Barn Door that was about as wide as a big bedroom, and not very long, and you had to walk up steps to the stage and walk past the band to go to the bathroom.
Oh
It
God.
was this tiny place, but it was so cool. It was so fun. The bar was at the front end of the place, and it sat like 3 stools, and it was super tiny, but it was really fun. And this guy Art Callahan was really nice to like have all ages shows in there, while they were a bar, and let all these kids come in and let these like young bands kind of come and set up shows, and it was awesome.
Did you guys start going to shows though before you were a band, or did the band lead you to going to local shows?
I think the band kind of led us to local shows. I think like we started the band in high school.
Yeah, like what was that
Um,
conversation like? Because the three of you guys knew each other in band, and then it sounds like the other guys were more into like punk music. And
well, I mean, I think like a lot of bands, like a lot of a lot of us start off in cover bands, you know.
yeah,
Um, and I think, like me and Joel and Sean, we'd all played in a lot of other bands and with other people in different combinations. And at some point in high school, like me and Sean and Joel, and I had a cousin, Tommy Mcgee, who I had been in another cover band with before Plow. Um, and that band ended, and Tommy was a little bit older than Sean. So Joel and I are the same age. Sean is 2 years older than us. Tommy was 4 years older than us. We brought him in, and he was playing keyboards, and so we would play like high school dances, and just like we probably played a talent show. I don't know,
yeah.
just silly shit. And I think we were starting to write songs, and it wasn't punk, but it was like, stuff was slowly like getting less inviting for keyboards. And he worked like a night shift job, and eventually we were like, I think me and Sean and Joel had a conversation like, do we want to maybe like play like fast 3 chord, like kind of like punk music, and sort of start dropping the covers, and like really kind of like focus on what we're doing, and because we're writing songs, and we were like, yeah, let's, and so we decided to, I think we kicked Tommy out of the band, which I don't think he was very heartbroken about, because he got to the point where he's just like, oh, I can't play keyboards on the song. What am I supposed to do?
It's too bad he didn't wait until like 2000 when the Get Up Kids brought that whole like thing around. You're like, oh, it works now.
Right. Oh, there's something to do there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it just kind of developed over time, with what we were listening to, and we definitely played Ramon songs live, and as we were like trying to figure out what we wanted to sound like and do. But
There's
we
some-
all,
yeah.
like but none of us were like punk rockers from the start. It all just sort of turned into that.
Yeah, we were the same way. Like we all kind of came that way later on in high school. It's funny when you're talking about this. I'm just kind of totally paralleling where I was like, yeah, I remember being in junior year, and that's when I got my first pair of Vans, just because my buddy had an extra pair, and I was like, these are cool.
Yeah.
And listen to Pennywise and NoFX. I'm like, what are these bands? Let's start playing that kind of music. But yeah, we would cover like Face to Face, and we would do more with that Face to Face and Pennywise and stuff, but you guys, it sounds like you might have been the more earlier stuff.
Yeah, I think we were like the little, like maybe like the earlier '90s version of that. Even we played like I think when we were covering stuff, we were covering. We would cover like we would cover the Smiths and REM and the Ramones and Richard Hell. That was one thing that I think sort of helped. One thing that sort of helped, maybe like sort of hone in on what the band wanted to do too is, I found. Did you get into those Rhino Records DIY CD comps from the early '90s?
Who was on those? 'Cause, I mean, the early '90s, I was getting, I was listening to Pearl Jam. I remember like one Christmas, my parents got me like In Vogue and Pearl Jam
nice.
and like Metallica. It was such a mix. I don't think I had anything really cool back then. Well,
yeah,
I thought it was cool, but
yeah. No, they had it was like I don't know, it was like 92 or 93 or something. And I think I only found it from like going to Rainbow Records all the time was Rhino put out these CD comps that were like they're like from a certain time period from a certain area. So there was like a New York scene there, which was, obviously all based around like CBGBs and Max's Kansas City.
Yeah.
And then they did like a Boston scene. They did an LA scene. They did two UK punk CDs, and they did some power pop CDs of like, like the early Nick Lowe and the Real Kids and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I had gotten a couple of those, and it was like, oh, this is like, here is like a roadmap or like a timeline or something.
Yeah.
Here's like a dictionary. Like, here's what came before us.
Yeah. Okay.
And getting into that, I was listening through that. It was like, oh, okay. Like, here's all this. And it was cool that like, I'm glad they did that because it kind of put into perspective, like, oh, not everything just sounded like the Ramones. It doesn't all just have to, it's like here, all these bands were all hanging out at this place together. And it was like, like the Ramones were playing with Television and Blondie, and you'd read the liner notes and be like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's just like education, which is kind of the same thing I did with folk music when I was getting into it, because there was that Yazoo label did all these compilations of like pre-war fiddle banjo music from Knoxville, Tennessee, or like just like very specific like things, and you're just like,
you see the progression of like what led it up to that point.
Totally. And the liner notes are just, it's like for like, for the nerds who like that stuff, it was just like heaven to find that stuff. Like, oh, look, it's like explaining everything.
Yeah, it was like
who
the
these
Google.
people are, where they came from.
Yeah. It totally it brought it up to like, oh wow, this led to this and this. It totally makes sense, the progression of how it got there.
Yeah. So I think that like that one like New York scene, and there's some stuff on the Boston scene one too that really kind of hit home, because it was like, oh, like it's punk and like whatever that's supposed to mean, but they're like at the core they're just like they're pop songs, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, we're just like we're kind of writing pop songs, we're it doesn't, we'll let the anger like sort of like distort and color things as we go, but like we're still just writing like verse chorus songs. Like we don't really have to think too hard about like writing a punk song. It's just like, no, just write the fucking song. We'll speed it up, and if you want to feel like screaming, then scream.
Did you have like a certain like topic you used to write about? Like when you started, I mean, I don't want to like have that bring us too far ahead, but was there? I know a lot of people were just very girl themed, or some people were about like politics, or some people were just about just nothing, but it kind of you let everyone else kind of figure out what it was about. Like what was your style?
I think for me there was definitely the girl stuff, because that was easy, and there's then there's like the the deep dark confusion of being like 20,
Yeah.
and which
Trying
feels so
times of being
silly now.
funny. Yeah.
uh, but I think for me personally, like stuff I needed I needed some drama to really kickstart some songs.
Yeah.
But and I think that's true for a lot of people. But
Oh, fuck yeah.
like Joel wrote like the bulk of the songs like for a long for I mean he if we had to like fill out like who wrote how many songs, like Joel wrote like probably half the catalog of Plow songs.
Really?
Yeah, and it was just and nobody really knows that because we didn't put like in the first go round of Plow United, we never put down like who wrote what in any of the records or anything. So you just assume that it's me because I'm the singer.
Yeah, 100%.
And which is totally reasonable for anyone to think that. But it was just how we designed the band. It was like, because we had come out of already playing like sort of in like a cover band that was writing songs, and I was the singer, and Joel's the bass player and Sean was the drummer and I played guitar. And so when we decided to like sort of morph this into this new thing, we just sort of like the infrastructure was in place and we just like kind of just kept doing that. And Joel is just like, even like, I think he started a new project. I haven't heard anything about it yet, but even like when Plow got back together, it was just like the floodgates opened and he was just cranking out songs. Like he's an awesome writer. And he's a fast writer, and he can just crank out tunes. And like,
it's amazing.
I could definitely say that like I haven't like 100% liked every song he's ever written for anything, but like everything is definitely like solid, and it's like well fucking written songs. And like when he did X Friends, he wrote a ton of songs in a short amount of time, considering that band lasted not that many years, and their output is impressive. So like early on, like he was just busting out songs, and it took me a while to sort of like get a handle on it, and sometimes I still don't feel like I have a handle on it. But
it's so funny to me that he wrote the songs, because like the majority of songs that I listen to by you guys, like you just sound super pissed off, and maybe that's just like the style of your voice, but there's just this pure, I think angst is kind of a aggressive word, but there's just it's just rawness to it. And so it's funny because that's why I automatically assumed they were your songs, because it sounds like you're so passionate about and pissed off about what you're singing about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it, like over the course of time, it's like singing anybody else's song. Like you do it over and over. If like something really hits you, you sort of make it your own. Like just in your head, like you sort of like absorb it and put your own thing into it.
Would he tell you though? Would he tell you what the songs were about, so you got to kind of connect to it, or did he just said like just read the lyrics and you figured it out?
Not really. I mean, when someone's like, when you're that close to somebody, you kind of know.
Yeah.
Or like, it's kind of like, oh, you're with this person and then you broke up and now you have these 10 songs. Okay, well, we don't have to talk about who this song is about. I mean, that's like goes for anybody. But like I remember the person he wrote Spindle about. Like he wrote Spindle, which is like if there was like one Plow song to like shoot into outer space, that's the one. Yep. And I feel like I've sang it so many times that like I sort of like I would never claim to have written it, but like it sort of feels like it's like I've taken some ownership of it, maybe just in the way that it's like it's kind of like a part of me, because like singing those guys' songs really helped me sort of kind of get a handle on how to write songs too, and just be inspired by it. It's just there's just so many great songs that came out of Joel and Sean, that sort of like showed me like the the light or the path or whatever to complete stuff or hunker down and finish some songs. But like they wrote so many great songs, and Joel wrote so many like the hits. Like he wrote Spindle, he wrote Lighters, he wrote Westchester Rock City, he wrote like Freedom or Security, he wrote Plow, he wrote Plow 2, he wrote You Can't Kill Me, I'm Already Dead.
It's amazing.
I don't know, like, there's definitely, when I was doing some solo shows in like the 2000s, people would definitely ask me for Plow songs, and there's a time I would get a little chip on my shoulder and be like, motherfuckers, like, I'm out here by my, like, as me, and you're asking me for songs I didn't write. But it's just like, well, I'm representing Plow. I'm representing me and Joel and Sean, like, and it's just like, and at the end of the day, I mean, I wouldn't get like bitter at anybody, but it was like, yeah, this is me,
No, I get it. No, I totally get it. I mean, but the thing is that, I mean, just like even right now that I learned that Joel wrote the majority of songs. I think that a lot of people listening to this are going to be like, holy shit.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Wow, we didn't really. And then they're, obviously not going to feel bad. But they'll be like, maybe next time I won't yell that to play Spindle.
No, no, I feel like I'm hooked to that song. No one down here knows it except for a small handful of people. But
yeah, we actually covered that song. My old band, Lanemeyer. We covered that when Alan was in the band. And I remember we did it one time at Skaters World in New Jersey. And Tom from Throttle Jockey,
oh yeah,
I think he was at the show and heard it, and I think we played another show with them. And I think I told this story in the Eric interview too. We're on stage and we haven't even started playing yet. Or we just played a set or something, and you hear Tom from the background. He's like, "Play Spindle," and then like to this day, me and my friends, we still like it's just yell that randomly because it was the funniest shit ever. Because that band was amazing to watch. Because you play guitar in Throttle Jockey, didn't you?
Yeah, and at some point. Yeah, but at some point I played bass too, which
that was bass. Like, yeah, but it was you and Tom, and then the other dude,
Alan.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then there's a guy named Ray who I think played drums. But man, I get like every now and then Tom would text me like, "Do you remember this one thing from like the time we Throttle Jockey played such and such?" And I'm like, "No." Like, and he's asked me enough times that I started feeling bad. Like, holy shit! Like I've completely forgotten all of Throttle Jockey. Like, except for the time he lit Alan's hair on fire with the magic paper.
I was just gonna bring that up. Like that, I asked Eric about that. And I don't remember if he said he remembered it, but I knew that was a true fucking story.
Yeah. Tom, like he got a hold of like that like flash magic paper, whatever the fuck that shit was.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I don't even remember where the show was, but he set Alan's hair on fire. We like had to pat it out.
So bad.
And then I think at the last Plow show at the church, I played bass in the band for some reason. I can't remember exactly what. I know, I did play bass because
I think I remember you playing bass at one of the shows that we played with you guys.
Yeah, because I remember, I think Tom or Alan was borrowing my guitar rig, and I had a Mesa Boogie Mark III in a road case, and I had like a 212 speaker cabinet that had like the top tilt with like the metal grate on the front. And we had just gotten back from a tour, and Tom worked at the fucking Hallmark store at the Exton Mall. And he left everything in the car, in the van, and then went to work the next day, and the van got stolen.
Oh my God.
And I lost this like amazing amp and speaker. I was so bummed. And I remember I had like a P-bass knockoff in there that I lost too, but I didn't lose my guitar. So I must have just been playing bass, and those guys were using my guitar rig or something.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a brief moment there in in 1999, no, 98. Like it was like Plow broke up. I was already in Throttle Jockey, and then I joined Super High Five for probably like 6 months. And I was in all of a sudden I was in like two bands. Um, and Super High Five. It was fun being a Super High Five because it was almost like if Plow was the Beatles, Super High Five was the Rolling Stones. It's just like
Interesting.
it was like getting in the party van, and like Plow would never drink beers on the way to a show.
Okay.
Like we just didn't do that.
Yeah.
But Super High Five, they built in a fucking cooler into under the seat. Like it's just what you did. And I remember doing a tour with them, like a southern tour. In the winter, it was like winter time or something. And it was just like, I was like, oh, this is the rock and roll tour that I hadn't been on yet.
You're like, yeah, I'm in it. Were you singing in that band, or are you just playing guitar?
Just playing guitar and singing backups here and there.
Yeah, that's where you can kind of let loose a little bit. You're like, all right, I could do this.
Yeah, it was cool. It's like, oh, the heat's off me a little bit. I'm just gonna hang out over here, make sure Sid and I don't kill each other with our instruments. It was fun, but at the end of the day too, like I just remember like having like this like crisis, like like, oh, it's not me, it's not my band, my heart's not in it, and all this stuff. And then I moved to North Carolina, and everyone was like, what happened to Brian? He left with his banjo. What's going on?
Well, okay, so before we get too ahead of ourselves, I want to talk about like what your guys' first show was like. Do you remember your first show with Plow?
Plow's first show?
And how'd you come up with the name anyway? This is it's sometimes I think it's a lame question, but I'm interested in knowing.
Yeah, we had it was junior year, and I was in chemistry class, and a guy sat across from me. His name was Chris Thor, and he was friends with Joel too. And I remember one of us must have asked him if he had any band names, because he was one of like the weirdo kids, like the 12 weirdo kids who sat at the lunch table together.
Yeah.
And Joel and we sat at the band table.
Says the band guy.
We were the band guys, So I think we didn't know what to call ourselves. And like we were just like, duh, well, we can't even come up with a band name. So we were like, let's ask Chris Thor. He probably has something interesting. And so he had Plow, and he had the Insatiable Love Bandits. And I think for one rehearsal we were Insatiable Love Bandits, and we were like, this is kind of dumb. Like, let's just call ourselves Plow. And then it was like really like that dull of a story. And then
I think it's kind of amazing. The guy's name is what? Chris Thor? What was the name again?
Yeah, Chris Thor.
I mean, that name's just fantastic. A guy named Chris Thor gave you the name. Wow, that sounds kind of epic to me.
Yeah, totally. I should have said his name was Christopher Thor. That just sounds even more Viking-ish or something. But no, and then so we were Plow for a little while, and I cannot remember what the first Plow show was. It may have been like a dance. It was junior year of high school that we officially became a band, so it could have been like a band dance, or like some high school dance, like where we like swap sets with a DJ or something.
Well, like what would have been like your first show where you guys finally found your sound and you showed up at a local scene show, and it was the three of you.
It may have been like around that place, the Barn Door. That was definitely the place where we sort of started probably coming into our own a little bit. And that was the first place we met touring bands who were that we kind of became acquainted with, like Jack Ball from Coolidge had that band Sponge God. And we met that's where we met that band Tall Man, who broke up and turned into Wally. And then Wally, it was Kit and Catherine from Tall Man started a band called Wally with the bass player from Sponge God.
Okay.
And then Catherine left the band, and then Wally morphed into like what they became way later. But I think it was the barn door where we were just kind of like, okay, like we found a place where we're, we can play, we can ask some other bands to play, and we can play for like 20 minutes and no one's going to be mad, and we can play what we want, and we can play once a month or however often we played. So I think it was probably based around the barn door where we kind of figured out what we were trying to do. And that's with like when we met Tall Man there, they kind of introduced us to the whole Westchester scene crew, and they're like, you need to come up. Our friend Eric has this house and he built a studio and they would love you, and you should come up and play like this Halloween party. And we're like, okay, cool. And then at a different show, we met that band. We met Sponge God, and Jack was like, they were like, oh, you guys are so great. And, that was like the first band we saw that like had like a 7-inch. We're like, whoa, cool. Oh, this is what bands do.
Yeah.
Like us. Okay. And then he put out our first couple 7-inches. And, so it was kind of nice that it just sort of, that kind of stuff just kind of happened as naturally as you kind of would hope it would,
Did you guys have like a vision? Like when you guys started doing all this stuff, did you put the band together? Did you kind of loosely just play shows? Like, yeah, we just play in the weekends and I work this kind of crap job, or did the three of you go like, fuck man, we can do this if we just, let's make this happen?
I think it probably definitely started like, let's play on the weekend and, work our jobs. Like, cause it started off, pretty minimal, like playing, like we had to stick to weekends. Sean was still in school. Like Sean actually like went to college and finished college after high school. Joel lasted 1 year and I lasted 1 semester. Like right after high school. It was like, whoa, no,
fuck this.
Can't do this.
Yeah.
So Joel and I were working our random jobs. Sean was in school. So our schedule was limited because of what we were all doing. And then I remember Joel, after like a couple of years of, or maybe after like a year of like really like playing as Plow, as everybody knows it, I think Joel was like, we should tour. We should we can book our own shows, like the ones we play here, like in other cities on our own. And, and that's like what bands do. Like he was definitely sort of like steering the ship. Like, this is what we should do next. And we should do this. Then we should do this. And, it's a lot easier to look back and say like, oh, if we had just stuck it out and not broken up and did this or did this, we, maybe things would have, maybe it would have like really like started paying the bills at some point. But, we kind of just did what we could do up to a breaking point, and then we broke and we're just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think the vision was there to like kind of like feel like we had something special that we feel like we're doing pretty okay. And, the show started to, I think everything was building a little bit at a time. And like, you feel like you keep like meeting like the right next person who like introduces you to like another scene or another band. And, and it was cool. Like, I mean, there was a sweet spot in there where, just organically we kind of fell in with like Weston.
Yeah.
And then we got to like play some really cool shows with the Bouncing Souls and Lifetime. And they were all like, we all looked up to all those bands, especially the Bouncing Souls. I mean, there was that point, like, I don't know, like 95, 96, where it was just like, fuck, man, these dudes are like kings,
Yeah. Was that the time? What was the album with like the zombies on the cover that they put out?
Maniacal Laughter.
Yeah. Was around the time when that came out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I
That was
remember
more
seeing
97, I
them.
think.
Um, when did I forget what year I saw them. I may have saw them for the first time in '94, and all they had was the Argyle EP and like the Argyle T-shirt, and we drove somewhere like maybe like Kutztown University, or we drove somewhere kind of a little far out to go see them, and they played like an afternoon show, and then they were driving maybe to like State College to play another show. Um, but they just like, like they kind of like, to me, the Bouncing Souls in like the like early to mid '90s, like kind of hit me the same way like that local band in Philly hit me when I was like 11. There was just like this like fucking like vibe around them or something. They're just like this packed, like it just seemed like impenetrable or something, and like they just had swagger, and just like it was like cool, and they were funny and
Yeah.
nice, and you're just like, it's just like they just had that thing, like when they walked in a room, everyone just went, oh shit, like,
Yeah.
oh fuck, okay, I'm gonna sit down now.
I'm gonna let them speak. It didn't sound like they let it go to their heads though. They were just kind of like, yeah, well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I could tell, they were all, they were just super cool about what was going on for them. So, and they, I remember just feeling like mega flattered when they asked us to play the times that they did.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Were those shows in Jersey or were they in Pennsylvania?
There was both. There was well, the first time we met them was on our, I think it maybe on our first tour in '94. This dude that we met in Jersey, he set up a show, and I can't remember what the venue was. It wasn't. It was maybe a church, but I don't think it was a church, and I can't remember the name of the town. But we were definitely like, the Bouncing Souls are awesome, and this dude was like, "Yo, I got you on that show," and we were just like, "Holy fuck," we were just like, we were freaking out about it, and actually, and then getting to be friends with Pete like a few years ago, more than we ever were before. He has pictures of he has pictures of us from that show, because I think I sent him some old pictures that I had found, and he's like, I got pictures from that show of you guys. I was like, what? He's
Wow.
like, totally, man. I was like, that's fucking cool.
That's wild.
But he had us like, they asked us to open up for them at the Troc in Philly, and I think we did like a punk prom with maybe them and Lifetime out in Lancaster. So there was like some Philly and some Jersey stuff that happened.
Did you guys?
I think we played.
Sorry, go on. No, you go.
No, I was gonna say, I think maybe there was a Wetlands show.
Oh
too,
wow,
maybe.
Wetlands. I remember that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing. I think I talked about this. I saw Ignite and Weston play there. And
Who is Knight?
Ignite.
Oh, Ignite. Oh,
yeah, it's a band called just Night.
Knight.
Super metal.
Mm-hmm.
Like what was how were you guys perceived around? Like, what was the local scene like when you were home? Because if you went on tour, obviously that's a whole different story. You'd play in front of 3 kids or randomly 100 kids, depending on the show you were on. But like locally, how did you feel people were perceiving you guys in Jersey and in Pennsylvania?
I mean, I think the reception was pretty good. I feel like I remember it being pretty good, especially once we kind of got a handle on what we were doing. Because there was definitely, like, in that short, like, whatever 5 or 6 years that we were a band, it feels like we definitely went from like being like sort of like saccharine poppy, where the songs were like maybe a little bit sweet, and then things started to like, then like by like Goodnight Sellout, we were kind of shedding some of that, and then by the time, when we were leaning towards Narcolepsy and Breaking Up, things went like full like the songs went like full rage, you know.
Oh, they were great. I mean, yeah, yeah, because my friends would always play Goodnight Salad all the time, and I liked it. But when Narcolepsy came out, I really gravitated towards that CD because it just sounds so pissed off,
Yeah,
and I love that shit.
and it definitely like it definitely turned some people off. Like I remember I was in when Plow became friends with Weston, and we were playing some shows with them. Me and my girlfriend at the time were hanging out a lot with Jim Snyder,
Yeah.
who is now James Alex
Yep.
of Beach Slang. Me and my girlfriend Erin at the time were hanging out with Jim and his first wife, and we would play each other like record like what each of us had been recording lately and stuff. And there was one point where I think we had plowed in a recording session where we recorded a song for like a comp, and then we recorded like 2 songs maybe for like the Stress Boys split we did, and then maybe like one other song. And I was like, oh, we just did these 4, and this is what they're going on. And the one song was like one of the ones that was going on the comp was like kind of poppy, and then the 2 that were going on the Stress Boy comp were like getting a little bit more aggro. And I remember like Jim being like, and he was like, I mean, still he's like super like pop oriented, and I remember him being like, I kind of like this, but like I don't know if I'm like really into like the screaming. Like it sounds like you're like, and I remember feeling like, oh, I'm really like screaming now. Because I never really thought like I was like, as far as like a singer, like as far as like a good singer goes, I never really felt like I was like a good singer, like singing like clean, clear melodies, but like I figured out at some point how to like scream in melody loudly, and it just felt really, really, it felt awesome to do. It's like, oh, that feels like I feel so at home.
But that's what I liked about it. You like your voice. If someone plays a Plow song, your voice is so distinct. You can tell it's got like you. I always thought you guys had this like edge, but you also kind of had this like, what's the word? Not like attitude, kind of like a fuck. I can't put the words to it. Not like a smart ass kind of tone.
Yeah, there was like a wise ass tone to it for sure.
Yeah, and it was like I felt that kind of came out in like your vocal style. Like I loved hearing it because it sounded like you didn't give a fuck, and I gravitated towards that. But you also could like sing it. Like I don't know, there was something about it to me that was like, man, this guy is like this guy sounds awesome. Like I remember just like hearing that and being like, man, these guys like sound like such a like I was almost like intimidated. I think that's the word. I was like intimidated by some of the songs because I was like, man, these guys just sound like they're just really pissed off and just like awesome to hang out at the same time.
I think all of that is true except for the intimidating factor.
Well, now it just doesn't sound like it at all.
You're right. You're like, oh, fuck this. These guys are phony.
Like a Joe Satriani over here.
Yeah, man, Satch. My dad took me to see him at the Tower Theater in Philly, and it was awesome because Stu Hamm played bass at the show and did like his like he played Peanuts on the bass where he did like his
Charlie
left
Brown.
hand played all the bass notes and then his right hand finger tapped the melody.
Oh my god.
Oh man, it was awesome. And I
like
think Terry Bozzio played drums. It was like I was in like guitar geek heaven.
Yeah, it sounds
so
like you're
great.
from what my understanding is, like you really appreciate people who can just shred. There's something about it that just you gravitate towards.
I say past tense. I did gravitate towards it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't. I'm at the point where it's like I don't care.
Yeah.
But at the time I was just like, how the fuck do people do? I want to figure. And I never got a handle on it as much as I like bought Guitar World magazine and tried to figure out the tab riffs.
Oh yeah.
For everything. I never really got a good handle on it. But it informed of course it informs everything you do. So I'm sure it somewhere in there, Joe Satriani influenced some Plow Uniter riffs.
What was your time like on Creep?
It was good. I don't remember.
Because Because he
I think it got awkward when Eric remixed and remastered Narcolepsy, because he re-released it and it sounded terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you can.
Is it on the one that's on Spotify, or was it like as a CD?
He re-released it. When was it? Maybe the early 2000s or something. I just remember like he took the artwork, and if you find the CD, the Plow United is really huge. The logo is really huge on the cover, and that's the one that doesn't sound so great.
Okay.
And I don't mean to like start my creep conversation by saying like he really screwed this thing up, but I just as far as like something that was like, because it was mostly good. You know, I don't remember like anything being awful. You know, like he was super supportive, and you know, he recorded us fucking all the time.
Yeah, because he recorded all the Creep records downstairs in his house.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because he talked about that in his interview.
Yeah, I mean everything Plow did was recorded down there. You know, outside of the demos we made at Sean's house, but yeah, everything we did in the 90s was done there.
Did you have certain expectations that you wanted from a label that like? I think of like when certain bands got on labels, they were expecting something, and then either it worked out the way they wanted it to, or it didn't, and they were kind of like, oh, that was gonna be different.
I think I don't remember having any huge expectations, just because I think I didn't really know what to expect. I think it was just, and I think we were probably all just floored that someone would actually like pay to release our music.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, oh, like we have like CDs and vinyl now and tapes. You know, it's just like, it was like, you know, it kind of felt flattering, and you know, maybe there was like this politeness where we like, it felt like don't ask for anything more. Like this guy's doing this thing for us.
Yeah.
You know, they're probably, I mean, I'm sure at the time there was drama that came up where we probably wanted him to do something else, or, you know, in the end, like when we got back together, like he gave us all of our tapes, in 2011, which was essentially like him saying like these recordings are yours now. Like, basically, I think he handed over the rights to them, you know.
Yeah, I read
like
that.
Getting us the tapes.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was really nice. You know, now taking up space in Joel's closet. You know, Joel has all the tapes. I have all the merch. Like, fuck, man.
You know, it's funny that you said that, because now that I've been today was the first time I posted about the new season, because the first episode of this season starts on Friday. And it breaks outside of Jersey, and people are, no shit, they're messaging me like, yo, are you gonna interview Plow? Like, people are asking me this. So the cool thing is, hopefully they're gonna hear this, and then they're gonna reach out to me or you, hopefully, and say like, hey, how do we get merch from these guys? And I'll just connect them to you and be like, here you go, they got that closet full of stuff, because people are still buying shit, man. Like, they are still looking for this stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know what else they're still looking for is the Plow Ramones T-shirt that I coordinated and have dropped the ball on.
Wait, what's that?
So we kind of stopped playing like 3 years ago or whatever. Sort of unofficial. We didn't like make a big announcement or anything, but we were just kind of like, are we done for now? Yeah, I guess. Okay. And then after Trump got elected, it was kind of like, oh fuck, like how do we didn't put our heads together like, how can we respond to this, you know? But we kind of did, and we were alarmed at, like, you know, just the like, we're trying to think of like who was going to be like more fucked by this, and we started talking, and I forget who brought it. It may have been Joel. We were trying to think of like, well, how can we raise money for an organization who is going to help people who are going to be negatively affected by this man being elected president.
Right.
And Joel, through a friend of Joel's, he found this organization called the National Day Laborers Organization Network or something like that. and they're based out of California, and they protect like day laborers, the guys who like stand outside of a gas station or stand in one spot, wait to get picked up for day work.
The guys
So
that
we
hang
did
out
a
at, like Home Depot and shit.
yeah. And so we did a hoodie. I had a friend, my friend Pete designed a hoodie, and so we put it out there like, we're going to raise money for this organization with this hoodie, and we're only going to print the number that's ordered. So it's orders up for 2 weeks. And so we did that, and that was, I think we raised like maybe $600-700. And then we did it again in response to all the families that were getting separated at the border.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, hey, maybe it's time we can do another fundraiser thing. Maybe we can just do a t-shirt this time. And so Joel's like, maybe we should have someone do the Ramones logo, but with Plow United in our names. And so my friend Bob Clark busted it out when we did it, and that was over the summer, and that was July. And I sent it. I did, to my own credit, I guess, I did send out most of them. I still have about a dozen more to send out.
Oh shit! Really?
I've just been busy, man. Like I've opened a fucking music store, and it's like I get home, like I hauled my printer home from my shop so I could like stay up late a bunch of nights in a row, like printing out the postage and taping it onto these bags. And so I just saw someone put up a Facebook message under the t-shirt, under the last comment of mine saying shirts are being mailed soon, and some guy just posted a question mark. I was like, fuck.
Oh man. Yeah, you got to get on that.
I know.
Yeah. I know. Nothing worse than someone waiting around.
But we raised like $1,000 for this one, on this one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was like, like I get it. Like people want their shirts. And at the same time, I'm like, well, at least you're home with your family. Like you'll get your shirt, man. I mean, it's no excuse to be tardy about it, but it's like,
yeah, you got to print those shirts, dude.
No, they're printed. I just have to put them in the bag and ship them.
I think if you just go to the post office and if you give them the pile and the list, like they can actually do it for you.
I know.
I believe
I've done that.
Oh, okay.
I've just been
busy.
Super busy.
Wait, like, so you opened up a music store? Is it an instrument shop that you opened up, or like a record store?
A musical instrument store.
Yeah, I did read that. Okay.
And repair shop.
And that's in Chapel Hill?
It's in Carborough.
Oh, okay.
Which is,
next
door.
Yeah. Okay. It's awesome. What's the name of it, so everyone listening?
It's called Twin House Music.
Okay. What's the address?
116 West Main Street in Carborough, North Carolina.
And now everyone can go pick up their shirts there.
Yes. Except for that guy in Japan.
Yeah.
It's on its way.
A couple more questions.
Yeah.
We're over an hour. I don't want to like keep you up because I'm sure you're probably super busy. Family, kids,
this is
music
fun.
job. Awesome. Cool, man. Yeah, this is a blast for me. So, I mean, I'm just, like I said, selfishly doing this. But
cool.
But the cool thing is a lot of people are listening, so that's also positive. So what caused you guys to break up? Like, what led to the demise before Narcolepsy came out?
Well, I remember, if I had to point to the moment where it was like, okay, we're breaking up, I remember we were sitting on the sidewalk outside of the Troc in Philly.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to play upstairs. We did play upstairs that night. And I remember Joel saying, we need to go outside and talk, and having a talk, and him saying like, I don't want to do this anymore. And, and it's basically like, well, if it's not all three of us, it's none of us. So that was kind of the conversation where it was like, okay, this thing has an end point now.
What like caused them to do that? Like, was it financial or he was just burned out?
I think it was There's definitely burnout, I think. And there had been like a bunch of things that were kind of letdowns. Um, like we were supposed to go to, I think, like Creep Records kind of partnered up with Blackout, um, and Blackout had like offices in Europe, and so we kind of kept getting told that we were gonna go to Europe and play Europe and start touring over there to support our records being released over there. And I think at one point we all like rushed to get our passport, and then it didn't happen. It was like, okay, well, like let's, and like it'll be in like 6 months. We'll plan it. And it just there was just like shit just sort of kind of kept like coming up like that, where we just kind of kept getting let down. And we couldn't. There was never really a point where we were like a full-time band either.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think we probably hit that point as a band that, and I'm sure like a lot of bands who have decided to stay a band and made it work, probably all hit that same point around like 5-ish years, where like you've kind of figured it out and you've kind of zeroed in on something that's working and it's building, and you have like a last pile of like organizational shit to get through before you can like really build a team up around you that you trust, who can actually get some other shit done and sort of propel the thing forward for you in a way that you can't do by yourself. And I think we just had like this maybe distrust for like everyone, like maybe to the point where we just like, we probably, I mean, who knows if we burned some bridges by like not trusting people because we thought we were getting taken advantage of over something stupid. I don't remember, but I do remember kind of hitting that point where it was kind of like, it was just kind of like, oh, like that didn't work out. Oh, that didn't work out. That didn't work out.
Just disappointment after disappointment.
Yeah. And Sean was in, I forget if Sean had graduated from school yet. But we hadn't, at that point too, we hadn't really spent like a whole year touring. Like we still had toured like summer and winter. So we hadn't been like out on the road that much. We hadn't been like support on like a bigger tour. And, there's some things that I think if we had stayed together, there were some things that probably were about to happen, but just because of like not really understanding it and not having like a team around us and like sort of not trusting people and like being like let down by a bunch of things, I think it just sort of wore us out. And maybe Joel just had his finger on the button of like what was bothering all of us, and was just like, you know what, it like we gotta hit this button and turn it off, So I could look back and probably say like, oh, I didn't really want it to end, but it wasn't really, I also wasn't really like steering the ship in a way that would have prolonged anything. It's not like anyone else was like, let me take the wheel a little bit and see if we can't make it work.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, if one person doesn't want to do it, like, we're not going to do this. That's ridiculous. Cause this is the band, so that, I think it was just like a series of disappointments really that kind of made us just throw the towel in.
It was funny because when you guys broke up, that was around the time where Lifetime broke up, I think, and Jersey's Best Dancers came out, and that came out after they broke up. And then I got into Lifetime. Like I had bought Hello Bastards, and I liked it, but I wasn't ready for the sound when I bought it. And I think it was in like 97. I wasn't prepared to understand it. Now I'm just like, wow. But when Jersey's Best Dancers came out, it was more digestible to me than Hello
Uh-huh.
Bathrooms, and I just fucking loved it. And I'm like, man, I can't believe these fucking guys aren't a band anymore. And then when you guys broke up, like my friends would always, we'd always play you guys, and you guys would always be on rotation in our cars and stuff. And like I said, when Narcolepsy came out, I just really gravitated towards that, and I was like, fuck, now these guys are fucking broken up. I think there was something about that time where these bands the sound finally went in the right direction. And then today, like I'm talking to, Chris from Braid, and Framing Canvas came out, and they broke up soon after that, and I got into that afterwards. And I was like, and it seems like and this is all around 98. It seems like at this point in time, all you guys have been doing it for so long, and like you just finally hit on to something, and then you were so burnt out by then, you're like, well, we'll just leave that to everybody, and everyone's like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Except I remember that same Lifetime era as well, of like,
Yeah,
we all just sort of like, we're like, all right, fuck it, and I think when did they call it a day? And was it 97? Did they break up like the same time Plow did?
well, no, because you guys were, like you said, you were 98, right, when you broke up?
Well, we broke up in 97 officially, and then we finished Narcolepsy during the rest of the year. And then it came out in 98, and then we played like 3 shows to say like, hey, this is the last record, play some shows. Okay, see ya.
Yeah, it seems like you guys were all around the same time, because I think that, let me see, discography. This is what I love about Wikipedia. Yeah, yeah, Jersey's Best Dancers came out in 97, and I think they had broken up as that came out. Actually, it's funny too, because I even talked to Brendan from Slapstick, that ska band from Chicago, and they had their last record come out after they had broken up. It's like there was something in the fucking water back in like 97 where everyone was just like, fuck this. And everyone was just wanting that. And everyone's like, God damn it. Like all these bands just left us with these great albums.
Yeah.
And they're not even going to play them anymore.
Yeah. Well, I remember at the last Plow show, like at the church in 97, like getting done and like saying hey to people, and like making my way back to the merch table, and Dan Yeeman was there, and and he was like, that was awesome, whatever, and I was psyched to see him, and he was like, well, what are you doing? What are you going to do now? Is it too early to ask you? Like, I was like, I have no idea, man. Band just broke up, and he was like, well, I'm starting a new band, and like I would love if you were interested in singing in this band. Like he liked my voice, and he was asking me if I wanted to sing in his band.
It's like Kid Dynamite band, or is this like?
Yeah, it was the band that turned into Kid Dynamite, and I was like, later on I put that together. I was like, oh fuck, well, that looks like it would have been fun. I don't know if I could have done it. Like I don't know if it would have worked, but they look like they're having a good time.
That's pretty badass, though, that Dan from fucking Lifetime asked you. He liked your voice so much. He's like, I think this could work.
Yeah. I mean, I was, I remember being flattered that he asked, but then like, really at the time just being like, fuck, man, I can't think about anything, right? What? Join another band right now? Like,
man.
I don't, I remember just having to be like, no, I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing now. Like, good luck.
Then he finds Jason.
One of the things I admire about Dan though too is like he just fucking keeps going, and he's kind of done that, and it's just like I just didn't have the fucking confidence to like just fucking go, just like, okay, Plow's done, next.
Yeah.
It was like, I guess I was just kind of like heartbroken. It's like, and then Throttle Jockey and Super High Five were like they were like my rebound bands.
Yeah.
Just like go make out with those bands for a little while until I come to my senses and be like, oh, it's not for me.
I'm going to North Carolina. I'm going to the mountains.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to go play folk music and square dances. Which I did. And it was awesome. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a blast. I had like, when I went to the folk school, like I totally got into square dances and contra dances, which I'd never done, and I never thought I would. It's not something like I'd ever thought about until it was like in front of me, and I was like, well, I don't have to worry about what anybody here thinks of me because nobody knows me.
Yeah.
And I don't have anybody from at home here. So I'm going to just like jump in and see how this makes me feel. And I was like, this is pretty fucking cool. Like, because it was like, it was a thing where it was not punk rock, but it was like a community dance of like, they book a dance, they have to book a band. The band needs the dancers need the band. And it was just like this very like just like symbiotic thing. It was just like, oh, like,
oh, it's fun as
yeah,
fuck,
this
dude.
is just fucking music. Like it's just like I'm playing another version of 3-chord music where everything sounds the same.
Well, the thing I like about square dancing is there's a festival here in Raleigh. There's a bluegrass festival every year. It's huge, and
At the IBMA?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's gigantic. It was just a couple weekends ago, and last year they had a square dancing thing at the end of Fayetteville, and so I was dating someone at the time, and then my buddy and his girlfriend, we all walked down to this tent, and this just giant crowds doing square dancing, and it was a fucking blast.
It's awesome.
And the thing I like about it too is that it's one of those where guys can feel confident, and this is such a weird change in conversation, but I feel like in other settings, like in a punk rock setting, right, there's kind of, even though everyone's there and they're accepted and it's like a community thing, there's still this kind of looking around of who's doing what.
Oh, totally.
You know, if a band's playing, like you want to sing the words back, and like sometimes someone don't really know the full words, and they'll like point their finger at the band and they sing it back, but then they forget the rest of the song, and they kind of like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have gone so hard right there. But
Yeah.
with like square dancing, I loved it because guys would just jump right in, and they teach you the movement in front of everyone. They're like, okay, this is the way this is going to go. I mean, this is the experience I had. But then you had like a ton of guys on the dance floor with women, and they're all just mingling with everyone and dancing around confidently. And I'm like, fuck, man, like that doesn't happen in a typical setting, like outside of that. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's just like, it was a play. I felt like it was like, oh, like this is fun. And
Yeah.
you're not going to get like, you're not going to get shamed, or like, no one's going to cool guy you about like having fun doing this. Like,
You're not gonna lose scene
that's what
points.
this is supposed to be. This is like what punk rock show is supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be like self-conscious at like, you know, a punk show of all fucking places, you know, like a place where everyone's accepted and no one should be shamed. Like there's still a ton of that. I mean, especially if you don't have the fucking confidence to like get out there and move around and do stuff, like being at a square dance, being like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and everyone's smiling at me.
Yeah.
And like they're okay, like we're all doing this together. Like we all need each other to like do the next thing the right way. And no, it was so fun. It was super fun, and I got way into the dancing part of it before the playing part. And then I had a friend, my friend JD. He played the fiddle, and he was like, he brought me into playing the guitar with him, and he's like, he's like, once you start playing these things, you're going to like playing it more than dancing it. And I was like, nah, no way. Like, this dance is so fun, you know? And he's like, no, trust me. And then once we started playing, I was like, oh, because when you're in the band and you're playing those contra dances, there's like, once you start going through them enough, you're like, oh, the band, like once the caller stops calling the dance and everyone's moving independently of the calls,
Yeah.
and everyone has the dance down, the band can kind of take control and make everybody move differently. Like by like messing with the dynamics, or like changing the beat slightly, or like you match the tune to the step of the band, and so the band accents the step. And like, there's like a pause, you know, like there's like all these, like there was all these tricks that he taught me.
Yeah.
And it was so fucking cool. And I just had this like total, and it was like, cause it was this thing where you're like, I am going to respond to how you are moving, and you are going to respond to how I am playing. And we're just like, and you're in touch with people from like all over the room, you know?
Yeah.
It was super fun, and it was all based around community, and I don't know, it was just like this other like DIY
Yeah.
DIY culture. It was just it was awesome, and it was cool that I got to experience it away from, the self-consciousness that I may have had in Pennsylvania with
Well,
punk rock and stuff.
and the pressure too. I mean, the pressure of being in a band, like when you're traveling around in your 20s, and everyone that you know is at college, and you're like, well, I should be going in some direction with a goal, and we're playing shows, and people are liking it. We have records out, but we can't make a fucking living off of this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up.
Okay.
But this has been super fucking fun to talk to you about this.
Yeah, man.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it was fun to revisit some of this stuff with you.
Yeah, man.
To the best I could.
No, I mean, it's amazing. There's some people I've talked to, and they just literally, they're like, "Fuck, I can't remember that far back." And you're like pretty spot on, remembering like super good details
Oh
about
yeah.
the past. Actually, real quick, do you go to shows now? Do you ever like head over to like Cat's Cradle and stuff and see any shows?
Yeah, every now and then, when it seems like it's good to leave the house because I got these two little kids. It's mayhem, but
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I just I get over to Cat's Cradle and Local 506, and last time I was at the Cave, we played the Cave. This new band, Sneakers Award, played, so that was fun. But I don't get out as much as I did like when I was like pre-kids.
Yeah.
But for obvious reasons. But yeah, I the show that I just missed that I really wanted to see was that band White Reaper. It was opening up for the Struts.
Okay.
And I don't know, White Reaper, they're just like this fucking great, like sort of like Cheap Trick, Thin Lizzy-ish sort of power pop band from Chicago. They're so good.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're so good. That's kind of where my head is at a little bit these days. That and Tom Petty. Those can't let go of it. But that, and I mean, I still get on a fairly healthy. When I was building the store, when I was building the store and like full of anxiety, I had this like 3 weeks where all I listened to was the Ramones. And I was like, I told my wife, I'm like, I'm in this total like Ramones phase. She's like, yeah, because you're full of anxiety right now. And I was like, oh, you're right. Look at me. Reading me like an open book. But you mentioned Hello Bastards, and that is still like one of my favorite records of all time, I think. And I don't know if I've gotten out of the habit of running, but it is an awesome running record.
Really?
Yeah, it's like there's something about it that like, and I had total like Jersey like moments of like running the boardwalk, listening to Hello Bastards.
I think like
when I lived
Jim's
up there.
Neutral Territory would be a great song to start when the bass line kicks in, like
yeah, and it's just like pace, like where it's like there's like super fast ones, and then like you get a break with like it's not funny anymore, and like you can kind of alter your pace, and then there's then Jim's Neutral Territory comes on, and like you get like this Chariots of Fire, like yes, I'm going, like you just, I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's somehow paced perfectly for running, and I wish more runners knew that.
About it. Well, then you figure like then the run's over at like in 16 minutes because the album is so short.
Yeah, well that's the thing. It's just like you get a good full blast run in a very short amount of time.
You get a good 1.5 mile run, and then you're done.
You're done. You're riding your ass off.
A good 1.5 mile sprint.
Exactly.
All right. So so 2 more questions. This one I always end. This is one I would always end every episode last season with, and then I'm gonna have you plug whatever you want to. But what scene ethics do you still hold on to this day?
Scene ethics. Man, what were the scene ethics? Don't be an asshole.
That could be it.
I think just you know what I try to do? I try to show up for the opening bands.
Okay.
It's just like yeah, go see the big shots, the headliners, but we were all the opening band. And some of us were the permanent opening bands. Some of us were always the opening bands. I don't know. I get why people are just like, oh, what time does so and so go on? I'll show up then. It's like, nah, come on, show up and see these other. Come see the new ones.
Yeah.
That, and just be as respectful as you can fucking stand it. And I think from probably putting my own foot in my mouth later in Plow's career, especially once I turned 21 and could drink at shows, I probably talked some serious shit. And I know there was one specific night at Wetlands where I got wasted, and we played a song that I said who the song was about, and I probably pissed off some of the bands we were playing with. And that was not a high point in Plow. I'm sure I embarrassed Sean and Joel at the same time. So, don't talk shit. Or just save it for the right company. Certainly don't do it from the stage. Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. Just on that note, the last episode of the season 1, I told this whole story when we were on tour. There was a band we were talking shit about the entire time, and I had to actually meet them face to face and just kind of do due diligence and just apologize. And and I did it. And then our van, me and my roadie took our van 45 minutes from Tampa to Orlando to go talk to them. And as we're leaving, it's 1 a.m, and the van wouldn't start. So I had to go back and ask the band to use their AAA card to get towed back to Tampa.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so fucking embarrassing. Well, the funny thing too is that the band, the guy who gave me his card, he actually put out. We just released our first record on vinyl, and he just put it out on his label. And I told him the story. He's like, "Oh man, I just saved your ass twice." I was like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "Well, I'm glad we got past me being a douchebag back in the day." Because
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like, Christ, how humbling was that shit? Cool, man. So, okay, so last thing. Oh, it was fucking so embarrassing. Last thing. What would you like to plug to anyone listening right now?
What would I like to plug? Well, I have this music store. I'm doing full repair work, and I'm actually way behind on it. But it's a new store. We just had a grand opening this weekend.
Oh, nice.
And it's the store is 6 weeks old. But that, and I don't know, that's the big thing I'm doing right now. I have this band Sneakers Award, which is fun. But we play once every other month, so I don't really have anything to report on that front. I have a solo show coming up in Carborough at the Steel String Brewery, which is right down the road from my shop.
Oh wow.
So for all you craft beer people, I think it's a Sunday early bird show too.
When is that? Actually, this is going to come out I'm sure past it, but actually, so that's
November 11th.
Yeah, this is actually going to come out past that. So hopefully, everyone listening, it was a great show.
Yeah, it was awesome. You missed it. Sorry.
I might actually check that out.
I played all of Narcolepsy. You missed it.